again, a treat because Dennis Tufano is right here with me. Of course, you know him with the Buckinghams, but I have some other secrets, and
Uh-oh.
good secrets, not bad secrets, but things that that Dennis has done that you would never. As far as I'm concerned, an acting career is just as important as the music career, but we can get into everything. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, how are you doing, Ralph?
Doing great, doing great. And
Good.
it's great to see you again. It's been I think you're on the radio show, but since we've done this, I think it's been a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, I think we tried once before but didn't make it.
Yeah,
But
that's my
yeah,
fault probably, and I'm sorry.
we're very busy guys. We're busy and we're important. We can't be, being stuck by technology all the time.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, just to get on the whole thing here with the two cans and a string, that was a feat. That was a feat in the first place. Uh, let me tell you about this man right here for 1 second. A voice like you would not believe. Now, neither one of us are spring chickens. We're not 40 anymore. And
No.
we'd be lying if we told you differently. But man, this man could sing like it was 40, 50, 60 years ago. And you know him from Kind of a Drag, probably, but there's so much more. And that Kind of a Drag, we always start with that because that was a whirlwind, but it goes back even even farther than that. It goes back more like 1965, right, Dennis?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we did a lot of singles, a lot of covers of other singles and stuff that we did because that was what everybody did at the time, were cover bands, I mean, we were all learning how to do it. And yeah, we recorded Sweets for My Sweet, I'll Go Crazy by James Brown, I Call Your Name by the Beatles. They all charted on the Hot 100 too, or they were just all local records. And yeah, so also Holly's hit "I've Been Wrong" was also released as a single for us. So we had local radio stations in like 3 or 4 states. By the time Kind of a Drag came out, they all knew who we were. So even though the record company had dumped us and dumped the record out there for no good reason at all, they didn't like the song. Because of the DJs knowing who we were, they played this record, even though it wasn't promoted. And they played this record, and it became a big #1 record in less than 3 months. So,
And there was
it's,
something magical about that in my eyes.
yeah.
You used horns, you had brass in there, which was very strange or very groundbreaking for rock music at the time. Yes.
Yeah, well, it was a good combination, I think, of because being a local band, we kind of played everything, and we did have a couple of singers at one point early on, and so we did me and the guy named George LeGros, and we actually sang a lot of duets, a lot of things like Righteous Brothers and Walker Brothers, Everly Brothers, and we did all the brothers. And
Hmm.
so we had an R&B kind of touch to us. We did a lot of R&B at the time because that's what we danced to as teenagers. And so I think that our sound became kind of a combination of what we learned in Chicago, the blues, R&B, jazz, and the pop stuff that was coming out at the same time added another layer to it. So I think that we had all that going in. We didn't know it at the time, but as we saw things retrospectively, uh, things were actually molding us instead of us molding ourselves. We kind of gave ourselves to the music. In other words, I think we followed it as close as we could to make changes and to evolve. So
How
the
did the
Chicago,
name Buckinghams come into play there? Why that name? It's very
well,
unique.
the Beatles was already taken, so we just went with.
Yes.
No, well, we were actually called the Pulsations, and we were a local band, and we won a battle of the bands early on to be on a local TV show on WGN TV, which is now a gigantic network. But then it was just mostly local in Chicago, and there was a show called All Time Hits that we won the battle of the bands for. And it was a show that had like 6 different genres of music. We were the pop rock and roll portion. And in rehearsals, we had to play live. We played one song every show, every week. It was 13 weeks that we were on it. And so what we were asked during rehearsals, would you consider changing your name to sound a little bit something more English because of the British invasion? Because this was 65. And we
Mhm.
said, well, we'll think about it. We're not that well known yet by this name, so it doesn't matter. And so the next day we came back to rehearsals and there was a security guard named John who came up to us and handed us a note. And he said, here, I wrote down some names. I heard what they asked you to do yesterday. And he says, I know that must be kind of intimidating. He says, but read the notes, see what it is. So we did, and Buckingham's jumped right out from the list because it was the shortest name. Secondly, we went, oh God, we got a fountain in Chicago in Grant Park. It's a landmark. It's called Buckingham Fountain. So we said, well, we could use the Buckinghams because the palace is English enough, and we can keep our job with this with the station, this TV station. We didn't want to pass up this TV promotion stuff.
Right. Right.
13 weeks of TV was good promotion. So we said, okay, we'll change our name to the Buckinghams, but we have one foot in Chicago with the fountain and one foot there. So then to real seal the deal, so we didn't seem like we were frauds, our Kind of a Drag album cover was taken in front of Buckingham Fountain. So we were standing right in front of it. It said Kind of a Drag, Buckingham's, and there was the fountain in back of us. So that worked really well. We kept our job, which was important to us.
Hmm.
But we didn't know that later down the road it was going to become a strange thing. Some people thought we were English. But that worked out fine. It worked out really good because we weren't promoting that at all. So, but the Smothers Brothers show did that to us. We did that show, and well, in '67 we did a load of all the TV shows. But the Smothers Brothers, when we arrived at the set, Tommy Smothers came to welcome us, and he said, "Boy, so we're so happy to have you here, and we love your music and it's great songs." And we said, "Yeah, we're big fans of you guys too. Like we're happy to be on the show."
Yeah.
And they said, "So where's your accents?" We said, "What do you mean, where's our
You mean
accents?"
my Chicago accent?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chicago accent. He goes, "No,
Yeah.
we thought you were English." And he moved the curtain, and behind the curtain was this gigantic set of English flags,
Uh-huh.
all Union Jacks everywhere. And he said,
Uh,
"Oh my God, we're going to have to change the set." I said, "You can't possibly change that set, in 2 hours." I said, "Leave it there. We have another song we're going to do without that set. It'll be fine." But we didn't even think about it then. That they don't interview you on those shows, so nobody ever heard us speak. So when they said, here they are, the Buckinghams, and we played, and everybody thought we were English when they saw that part of the show. So that's kind of the Buckingham name story right there.
You know what? You know what's interesting? Everybody wanted to be kind of connected with the British sound at that time. The great
Mhm.
American groups kind of changed their style. I always
Sure.
thought that you guys, I was born in 1960, so I was a kid when you hit it big. But yet, I go back and hear these records in the 70s, and it feels
Mhm.
like it's current. It feels like
Yeah,
those records never got old because a good song never gets old.
right.
But was there any kind of pressure saying, well, you have to duplicate or sound like the Beatles or sound like the Stones, anything like that?
No, I think that became just a natural additive to a lot of American groups. I think the biggest thing was the double track vocals, 12-string guitars, and twangy rhythm tracks. And
Mm,
I think that had a lot to do with because before that we were pretty much clean. We didn't do a lot of double tracking. There was no 12 strings and blues. And there's a lot of things that just evolved into the music. And I think everybody was, there's like groups like the Knickerbockers,
mm,
uh, the song called Lies. And I bring that up because some people sometimes say, Buckingham's, you did Lies. No, that's Knickerbockers. It's actually reverse. It's Buckingham's
you're right.
Knickerbockers. And
Yeah.
but yeah, that so they actually sounded like they were an English band. And there were a whole bunch of them like that adopted that sound. And actually, Peter Noon had said to me once, he said we were in the wings at a concert, and he said, you guys were pretty clever. He said to when all the American groups couldn't get a record played during the British invasion, some of the people thought you were English because of the
Mm.
Buckinghams, and they played your
Yeah.
records anyway. And I said, well, we weren't that clever back then to do that on our own, but I'm glad it happened that way because we did get survey time, and we were charted during that whole matter of fact, 67 Billboard magazine said that we were the most listened to band in America, and that we sold
Yeah.
more records than the Beatles in 67. You
Well,
know, and
you knocked out the Stones for the number one slot. I know
yeah,
that.
Stones and
I think the
Monkeys, yeah,
Stones were second, and some other the Monkeys were
Monkeys,
there,
yeah,
but you
right.
guys were on top, right?
Yeah, we came in after about 4 weeks on the charts. We hit it real big there. Yeah, it's great.
So during that period, you went from, kind of obscure to right in the limelight. How did your life change? I mean, what happened when you walked down the street? Did they say there's Dennis, the lead
Well,
singer of the Buckinghams? Did it work that way?
Well, because we were from Chicago in the city, we used to rehearse in our parents' garages and basements. So the local neighborhoods knew who we were because they could hear us, 2 blocks away. But they used to always gather around the basement windows and listen to us rehearse and play and stuff like that. So they kind of knew about us then. But it didn't happen too much because back then, when you think about it, there wasn't as much. Well, there was no social media. There was no constant return of your face someplace. And it was in TV. There wasn't a whole lot of us on TV. So it was basically just voices coming out of the radio. So a lot of people just didn't really pick up on us right away. But it's kind of shocks me every once in a while because I don't think that we were visually that around. I don't think that we were
Hmm.
promoted that way. Uh, and we kind of like looked like a lot of the other bands, I think. So it wasn't like, I mean, look at behind me here. You got
Yeah, look
Easy
at that.
Beat.
That's fantastic. Is
Yeah,
that an album cover?
this is no, this is a
A
poster.
promo picture?
It's a public poster from 1967, the Gene Pitney tour.
Hmm.
This was the first major tour we were on when we started getting picked up. And it was like the Easy Beats, the Happenings. Gene Pitney was the headliner on this thing. That was like an amazing thing. And somebody sent me this, and it was great because I said, "Well, this is great. I need a backdrop, and this is perfect."
This
I
is
mean, if I was able to scroll and go back up and down, you'd see who else was on there. Lou Christie. I mean, all kinds of people with cow sills. There were kind of crazy people on that. So we had a good time there.
right. So
But I don't.
I heard Christie just passed. And he
Yeah.
was one of the
Yeah.
great. He was one of the
Oh, yeah.
greats. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so no, well, in that vein, there's so many people that are passing now. I mean, it's like it seems to be the season, it's kind of like the season of the witch or something, but it kind of drives it home about our mortality. And but I think that it seems like most of the people in the 60s that are still around uh, didn't OD in the early days.
Yeah.
There was some people who really messed up their bodies and brains early on, and that haunted them the rest of their careers, But thank God I was surrounded by good people and I didn't go off the deep end. A lot of disappointing stuff happened to us, a lot of depressing things, but I always had good people to give me an arm, and say, okay, you're going to be all right. Don't worry about it. So I didn't trip and fall into the pit too badly at all.
Well,
Uh,
we can go back, but I know in 1971 something happened that broke the band up, and it wasn't
yeah.
quite the same. Something behind the scenes, but we can get into that. But at that point, when you where you are now with that big hit, and you just still oops, my phone's ringing. And with the that big hit, before that, a cappella, right? Then like a battle of the bands kind of a thing, and then you lead into and you start changing the trajectory of the band, And then you find yourself, right ensconced in the greatest musical era that we've ever probably been in to date. Because I can't stand modern music, and I don't care. I just can't deal with it. But that era right there was so fantastic. When the psychological, when the psychedelic era
Uh,
came in, how did you conform, or did you conform, or did you just go your own way anyway?
No, I think we kind of rode the wave a little bit of psychedelia because it was a theme, a trend and a theme happened, that psychedelia. I mean, to take a mind-bending drug experience and turn it into a trend was kind of interesting, and it affected everything. It affected the art. It affected everybody's life. I think purple became a very big color. There was an awful lot of stuff that was being affected by the psychedelia and we dressed to fit the occasions. We were paisleyed out, and we had our Indian look sometimes, and we kind of got into the whole thing, and to the point where actually we had 5 suits that we used to wear all the time. And they were Edwardian. That gave us an English look also. But I designed all those suits because when I got
You
out of high
did.
school, I
Wow.
was I was a graphic artist when I got out of school, and then 2 years into being a graphic artist, the band started to work, and I decided that quit my day job, take the risk, and go
Yeah.
with the band and see what happens. And luckily, it worked out. But so when we got in the band, the first thing the guys said to me was they said, "Hey, let's get some good suits so you can draw them up and do them." And matter of fact, the other day I was just going through a lot of memorabilia and sorting it out, and finding things that are too delicate to touch and all kinds of stuff. And sure enough, I found a lot of that stuff, that was there that reminded me of those days. So it was, and I look at them now and I go, really, really, I was that young at some point. I mean, you look at yourself back then, and we felt
Oh,
like we were 40 back then, but no, we
oh
were
yeah.
only 20. So, it makes a big difference.
And I and
Uh,
I I wanted to ask you this too, Dennis, because this is always something that if I were in your shoes, I would remember this. I'm not so sure that you do, but the first time you heard one of your big hits, whether it was Mercy, Mercy, Mercy or something else on the radio, because radio was everything. When you
mhm.
when you heard it on the radio, did you say, hey guys, maybe you call the other guy and say, we're in. We're in. I just heard our latest on the
Yeah.
radio, right?
Well,
Did
the
that
the
happen?
one that we heard all together was "I'll Go Crazy," our James
Mm,
Brown cover.
mhm.
We took the single because it was getting some noise. And so we took the single up to WLS radio when Dick Biondi was the big DJ then. And he was instrumental in breaking most of the Chicago bands and people otherwise from other places. He was very good at that, a real music lover. And so we would go there, and he was on the air from 9 till 12, and we'd go there around 11 o'clock, and we'd talk to him through the window and all that stuff. And we asked him to play our record. And he goes, "Look, I can't really just throw a record on because the program directors pretty much log what we have to do, and that's what we have to do." He said, but I'll have a listen though. So we were like disappointed and happy that he took the record anyway. So we left the building, got in our car, we're driving away. It's 3 minutes to midnight, and we turned on the station to listen to him at the end. And he says, "Hey, we're going to be going off now, and there's a new one by the Buckinghams."
Oh.
And he threw it in there, and "I'll Go Crazy." And the very last thing everybody heard was our full recording of that record. And we were in the car, and I think John, the drummer, was driving. He pulled over in downtown Chicago. We got out and danced. We
Oh,
danced in the car.
that's that is the greatest. That sounds
Yeah,
like such a great moment.
it was a moment that we definitely changed our way of thinking. Definitely changed our way. Like, we just heard ourselves on the radio. That means
Mm.
other people did too. And
The other
WLS was
band
amazing.
members, were they accomplished musicians? Were you guys really students of music? I know you were. As far as your other guys go, I mean,
Yeah.
did everybody, were they prodigies? You know, very, very,
Well, I think
very,
they all just got swallowed up in the thing like being a band and meet a girl, I think.
no, that's it. It was that simple.
That was a big deal, I think. But I mean, most of the people that we had could play. A couple of the guys early on in the band that didn't last for the real band were not quite as committed to music as they were just being in a band. But through a year and a half of people not showing up and saying, "Well, I guess they're not in the band anymore." So we had we evolved into some good people, and what we ended up with in the final Buckinghams was a decent band, and we were very good live. And so it really worked that we were because I think all the '60s bands were good live because that's how we started. We started
Yeah.
by playing clubs 4 or 5 sets a night, and you start to get the songs right. You start to understand what you're doing. And so I think that helped a lot as far as going out because we never carried horns with us on the road either.
Mhm.
And this was a very interesting thing because people said, we just saw you and you have horns in your band, but we didn't miss them when you were playing." And we said, well, that's because Marty Greb, may he rest in peace, our keyboard player, multi-instrumentalist, played saxophone and was one of the endorsees for Hammond B3 organs, where he knew how to play that big sucker, that heavy
Yeah.
keyboard. So he was really good. So what he did was he would play the sax and the B3. He would get it programmed right that it would be the sound of it would be like a horn section, and the live saxophone paid it off. So when we did that, we would just do it and nobody bothered us. Nobody ever said to us, "Where's your horns?" And then every once in a while, like a big thing, like it was a Columbia convention in Florida, and we hired some local horns to be at that because it was a big event. But we realized that we didn't really need the horns for our regular gigs and stuff because we had it down pretty well that we presented ourselves in a way that it wasn't an issue, you know. So
Now, now you did covers in the beginning, which most bands do. But did
oh,
you
yeah.
did you write the stuff yourself or another band member? Who wrote this stuff?
Well, our hit, kind of a drag, and about four of the songs on the first album were original songs written by Jim Hovey. He was a Chicago musician. He was a guitar player. His name was Jimmy Soul. And since he was 14 years old, he was writing R&B. He was part of the whole scene on the south side of Chicago doing R&B music. Matter of fact, his band called the Mob were an R&B cover band. They had three. Big Al. Big Al was the lead singer. He was great.
Hmm.
Uh, and so, but Jim gave us some songs that he said his band wouldn't probably do. That they were different songs. And then, of course, he went on to write "Don't You Care," "Hey Baby," and "Susan." So we had our own personal writer giving us hit records, one after another, which was great. Uh, but uh, but the original stuff that we just grabbed stuff that we played live and got good responses to. And so I know that we get a lot of comments to this day on "I Call Your Name" because it's kind of a cross between the Beatles and the Mamas and Papas because they both had them out at the same time. And we just did songs on covers that we really enjoyed playing and doing and had a good audience response. And we transferred a lot of those to our first album, you know, and
Yeah.
along
Now,
with
were you on Ed Sullivan? Were you on
yes,
these
yes,
shows
we
at the
were.
time?
Yeah, we were on Ed Sullivan. It was like a high point for all of us. I mean, we were blown away by it all. We actually got to meet him and talk to him, and was a very interesting man. There was a lot of like aura about him, and he didn't seem like he had any sort of ego or anything like that. He was just a nice guy. He didn't talk to the bands much. I mean, what you've seen him do on the show is pretty much conversation as he'd have with you.
It's about it.
Yeah, but it was always fun to hear him go, "And right here, the Buckinghams." You know,
I
and you
knew
go,
I'd get an invitation. Because, and you
Right
think of
here,
you think of the
right,
shoulders.
right here in our show. No, he was a great guy. Matter of fact, there's a documentary out about him. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, I saw it on Netflix. I didn't
did you
watch
see it?
it, but
Oh,
I'm like,
watch
yeah,
it.
well, I saw bits and pieces. Yeah.
It blew my mind. This man promoted uh, black artists like it would depend, like his life depended on it. He was like instrumental in getting them on the TV show at that time because they didn't want a lot of black artists on his show. And he went, "Oh no, I'm putting who I like on the show." So he's quite an interesting guy, considering that that's what he was known for, that Ed Sullivan show. But
I heard good stories about him, bad stories about him. Like
oh yeah,
he censored something. The comedian Jackie Mason came
yeah,
on, and
yeah.
I won't do it on the air, but this is not my middle finger. But
Yes.
he supposedly did something like this, and I saw the gesture. I don't think it was purposely done, but I think that Ed thought it was purposely done, and you never saw Jackie Mason again. That
I'll
was
tell
it.
you,
And he also
Jackie
told the
never
Rolling
got to be
Stone.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying Jackie, he wasn't there. He didn't want to be on the show.
The Jackie Mason imitation. He was fantastic. He could just stand on stage. I start laughing. He was like Rodney Dangerfield. He was fantastic.
Yeah,
But I think about also the Stones. Let's spend the night together. They had to say, "Let's spend some time together."
come
If
together.
I
Right,
think
right.
so, there were different things in those days on TV that you could do and you could not do.
Oh
But
God, yeah.
your band was not on the risque side.
No, no, we didn't have any controversial stuff going on until later. There was, little things that happened to us. Somehow
Well,
we
what
were,
have you want to get into something about what happened? What
yeah.
happened to break
Right.
you up?
Well, one of the well, what the start off the breakup was our producer manager was kind of putting the pressure on us on our album we were working on, Portraits, which was like a major album for us. We did a lot of the writing on it, and we had to go back on tour. And he said that we're going to publish all of our songs in his company, and then we'll sort it out later. Which, of course, nowadays that sounds like a grift right
Hmm.
there,
Yeah, sure.
and it was. So he swallowed up our publishing, and we had a fight to get it back. And during this period of time, because he stole things from us and money was missing, we sued him. We were in litigation. And during that litigation time was a very dark, dark place. And we were playing in Iowa, and somebody set us up. Somebody left some roaches, which were not bugs, but little tiny cigarettes
Yep.
left over, and we didn't know where they came from. And they set us up, threw us into a little motel, and at 3 o'clock in the morning came in and busted us
Wow.
for yeah.
You know, I never heard this story. Somehow it got by
No,
me. That's something.
no. Well, it was weird because we were pretty shocked because it got really out of hand, and it was really two little pieces which would not count for anything at all.
Yeah.
And so, and they said that they wouldn't talk about it, that, because the next night was our concert in Iowa.
Hmm.
And they had arrested everybody except Carl and I, because we had gone out to try to find some food. And in the time coming back from that, everybody was gone. They were in jail in Iowa uh, in 1968. So
Yeah.
it was really tough.
In
And
a
so,
cornfield somewhere, Iowa.
yes, yes. And so that was a rough night. And then we all just didn't
Wow.
sleep, of course. We got everybody bailed out and we got
Hmm.
ready to go. And they had trashed our rooms. I mean, it typically just like when you see when the police come in and start ripping a room, they trashed they took all of our real cigarettes, broke them in half and emptied them on the floor. They did all kinds of weird stuff to us. And and then we stopped on the way to the gig the next day to get something to eat at this diner that was on the way. And of course, the place was full of our fans because it
Hmm.
was on the way to the venue. And two of us walked in to pick up our food that we had ordered. And the whole place stood up and started applauding. And we're looking at them and they're going, yeah. And they're all doing this to us, we're going,
Right, right,
I
right.
thought they weren't going to announce this. But sure enough, there it
Yeah.
was. And they were all applauding us, the fact that we were real. And so now we're at the show. We're walking up onto the stage, and there's like six policemen standing in front of the stage, looking at the crowd. Okay. Just looking at the crowd. And then as soon as we got on stage, they turned around and looked at us. And we're trying to play to the audience, and there's these big cops in front of us too.
Right.
And halfway through the set, all of a sudden, I get hit in the head with a joint. And all of a sudden, two joints. All of a sudden, there's like 10 joints. They're all flying up on the stage. They're throwing these little cigarettes at us from the audience over the policemen's heads. And every time one flies through the air, the audience goes nuts. They went crazy and stuff. So, needless to say, we had, which we needed, a really good, positive, energetic gig. But it was a sad ride out of town because
Mm.
now we had to face the problem that caused. Because what happened then was, of course, it was 68. Uh, the headline came out in the newspaper. Pop group the Buckinghams arrested on narcotics charges. This was the head of,
Narcotics.
yeah. And so all of a sudden it went all over the place. Matter of fact, it got to the radio stations right away. And our phone, we started calling home
Yeah.
and to say, listen, there's going to be something on the radio. They said, oh, we already heard it. Are you guys okay? You were all arrested for, I said, well, not all of us. No, not all of us. Thank God, because the two of us
You
were able
escaped.
to get
Yeah.
everybody going anyway, because we would have been stuck in jail otherwise. And that really hurt. That really it cost us some foreign tours because now we were undesirable.
Mm.
It cost us we did a lot of concerts at colleges. Like I said, I never went to college, but I played in every one of them. I majored in beer bash, but but it was scary because all of a sudden we were looked at like drug fiends or something.
Isn't that something? Just how
And they,
tame that was compared to what goes on.
oh
And
yeah, nothing.
heroin, when you think of narcotics, you think heroin, you think,
Yeah, yeah,
pills or
pills
something.
and
But
stuff. Yeah, and
oh
and
my
the
gosh.
fact is uh, at that time everybody was very careful about handling that sort of material.
Hmm.
And so when they came up and we're going, what are you guys, what are we being arrested for? Because they had a warrant and everything. We really, the reason we got uh, taken off of the whole thing and all the charges were dropped was because their search warrant was out of date. It was 2 days too late,
Technicality.
but they never posted the retraction that we were
Uh,
exonerated. They never posted it, so we
yeah, you
carried,
never get yeah, that's what the public doesn't get that part. They get the
yeah.
bad part without the retraction. Yeah.
So we had
And
to
that's what
fight
they
through
remember you by.
another year of trying to keep working because people said, "Oh no, you're not. You guys are drug addicts."
Well, who would object to that? Who would actually say, "We don't want to hire these guys. Don't you see what happens to them?" Who were the people that said that?
Just some people who were afraid of that whole scene in the
You mean
'60s.
concert promoters?
Yeah,
These types?
promoters. The record
Okay.
company got really uptight, that we were jeopardizing our reputation and stuff like that. We just tried to play through it all. It went away after a while, but what really hurt us in a sense, because we were in the middle of litigation. All of our money was going to attorneys. We kept having to fly back and forth from wherever we were to the hearings. It was a complete debacle.
Mm,
And that was part of and things got so bad. And he also went and poisoned uh, Clive Davis's mind about us because we still had Susan in the charts when this
mhm.
all took place, and it was a hit. And we went to New York, all of us, to talk with Clive Davis to let him know what happened and what was going on with our manager and and stuff. And for an hour, we just poured our hearts out to him and said, just need a new producer, and we'll get on it. We've got a hit record still in the charts. Let's keep going. And he said, well, that's all well and good, boys, but what about this drug problem you have?
Mm.
And we said, what are you talking about, drug problem? He said, well, it's heroin. I know it's heroin. And I said, what are you talking about? Do we look like we're heroin addicts? No, we're here. We're alive. We're not drugged.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for coming in and talking. And he ended the whole meeting and he opened the door and there was our manager, producer, standing there in the hall saying, how'd the meeting go, boys?
Mm.
And that's when our bass player jumped at him in the hall in Columbia Records in New York. And we had to peel him off of our manager in the hallway.
Really?
Uh,
I didn't know all
yeah.
this juicy stuff happened. So
Yeah.
the bass player physically went after the guy?
Oh, yeah. Because
Wow.
it was obvious the way he talked about heroin and stuff. And all of a
Right,
sudden, that
right.
was the guy, he set us up. And Clive Davis, and we're sitting there looking at Clive Davis going, no, no, you're much more important than he is. What are we talking about here? We got charted records, we've had hits for 3 years, and now you're just telling us get out, we're heroin addicts? You're crazy. So
Unbelievable.
we lost a lot of respect for him because what we found out was that he had a deal with our manager Jimmy Gercio to give them a big super group he had.
Hmm.
So Clive would do anything he said, and what he said was, "Get rid of the Buckinghams because they're suing me."
Mm.
And he got rid of us, and the group that Jimmy had promised him was Chicago because
Chicago.
he produced Chicago too, and we
I
knew
think they hit
Chicago.
in 1969, right? This is around
Yeah,
69?
yeah, 69, and but they didn't come out till like 70 because he was
Hmm.
hiding them. He was hiding them, and they were doing their record. But that was what the deal was, and he even tried to screw Clive Davis out of that band. It's,
Mm.
it's in Clive Davis's book. There's a book that he wrote some time ago in the 70s or 80s, and it talks about Jim Guercio pulling a stunt on him. He's saying, come on, was this super group that you promised us? And he told him it was some other group. And Clive said, look, and I already know the whole business knows you've got this, you're hiding this band that's going to be super, and you can't lie to me like this. So he found out that Gershia lied to him too down the road. The reason they dumped us was so he would get the deal with Chicago. It was
Oh
obvious.
man, what a
Ah,
conniving
oh yeah,
that was that's terrible. I mean,
yeah,
I'm glad you put it out there now because people can, because you know something, as time goes by, they get the story wrong. And here I
yeah,
am talking to the man himself. He's going to tell you the real McCoy. And isn't that something? Because drugs were a drug was a drug was a drug kind of a thing.
yeah,
Drug addicts meant, you could be smoking a little pot, which it's not my thing, but no big
yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Compared to heroin,
Oh God, yeah. Well,
it's like night and day.
yeah,
But
especially since
that is something else, boy. That is some story.
it got us in trouble back then, and now it's medicine. So
Right,
it's
that's
hard to
right.
say,
I mean, who
yeah,
doesn't smoke now
that's
these
right.
days?
As little
Sometimes I feel
grandmas.
like I'm the only one because I'm just don't smoke anything, but
Oh, that's
I
good.
never
Yeah.
did. But yeah, it just never was my thing. I'm no goody two shoes, but that's not my thing. But and as an actor, I know we'll get into your acting because I'm an actor myself. But when
Oh,
they always try to make me smoke on film or
oh, it's
smoke
tough. Yeah.
on stage. I can't look natural smoking anything. I'm talking about a cigarette or something like
Yeah.
that. But well, it's funny how that was it's so tame now, it's so mainstream now, but it was so off limits back then,
Oh
and
gosh.
times have certainly changed. You mentioned Chicago. I heard you man, I watched this interview maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I caught you with somebody, I can't remember who. But did Peter Cetera was Peter Cetera, the bassist, supposed to have something to do with with your band at one point,
Yeah.
or what was that about?
Marty Greb, our keyboard player, uh, was with a band called The Exceptions in
Mm,
Chicago. It's a band that we used to go see all the time when we come in off the road because they were unbelievable musicians. And they turned out to be Chicago in the end. But they were called the big thing at the time. And we used to rush down to see them because they were totally unique and were so out of the universe as far as how they were playing. They were just great. And so we used to go down and see them play all the time. And but in the exceptions were great. Matter of fact, the exceptions were so good that one Friday night we went down there, and that Friday the Beach Boys released "Good Vibrations,"
Oh, mm-hmm.
and that
Is this
night,
60? Is this 60? This is 66, maybe? Am I
yeah,
too
something like
soon?
right on there, yeah.
66? Okay.
And we went to the club that night, and the exceptions played the song. It was just played on the radio that day, and they played that song perfect. They covered it that night perfect with the harmonies, the music, every
Mm,
little part of it. And we were like numb watching them do this. But the
mm,
bass player in the exceptions was Peter Cetera. So Marty and Peter, and that's when John and I, the drummer, we went in and we told Marty, we said, we wrote him a note and we said, you, Marty Greb, will become the keyboard player in the Buckinghams. You know,
mm-hmm,
'cause our keyboard player left because he wasn't committed to anything. And we put it on his piano. So when he came back to do the set, he looked at the thing and he went, let's talk, you know. And we were
uh-huh,
like, wow, because this guy was like super. And sure enough, they were tired of being the greatest band in Chicago and couldn't get a record made, couldn't do
mm.
anything. It was like sad. I mean, they were the best band around ever.
And they
And
eventually broke up, right?
well, that's what we found out when because Marty asked us, "So what do you guys, what have you heard?" And I said, we haven't heard anything. We just heard you and we like you with us. And so he said, well, let's do so he came and auditioned for us and we clicked. So he became a Buckingham. And so yeah, but Peter Cetera was in that band. I mean, there were so many people in the city at that time that then became Chicago, the CTA, that they
Mm-hmm.
were so good, you know. Now I don't know who they are. There's not that many of them left in
Yeah,
the
they've been around. Well, Ceterum left about 1980 or 81 or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
They changed personnel many times, but
No
but
doubt.
the core still was there. The one guy shot himself terribly, Terry
Well,
Kath.
Terry Kath. Well, yeah, Terry Kath was the leader of the band. He was the guy that
Yeah,
had the sound, and yeah, he accidentally shot himself.
yeah.
Uh,
And I want to make sure that, yeah, accidentally. That's see now
yeah, it
that
was
could be
accident.
misinterpreted what I
Yeah,
just said. In
no, he was
some crazy thing, Russian roulette kind of a thing.
no, no. Well, what it was, he was
No?
a collector of guns. He liked guns,
Oh, oh.
so he had just gotten a 45 automatic engraved. It
Mm,
was just like a showpiece. And just like any good gun owner, he cleared the clip out of the gun
yeah, yeah.
and was showing it to a friend of his at his house. And actually, Danny Seraphin, the drummer, was there at the time.
Seraphin, yeah.
And uh,
He just
Terry,
accidentally
Terry
something.
went, "Oh yeah, man, you know what I mean?" It's like, and
Oh,
how
he
you
put the
joke.
gun to his head.
Yeah, you'd kind of joke around and do this thing with your finger. Well, he did it with a gun because he had emptied it, but he forgot that he chambered one. And
Oh,
he put it to his head and
jeez.
pulled the trigger and it was gone. That was it.
Oh,
Everything in the world changed right there. Uh, it
the
freaked
guy
the
was
band out.
such a natural and so different,
Oh,
and
Jimi
his
Hendrix.
voice was so soulful.
Oh, totally, totally. And the band changed after he was gone. The sound, the
Mm,
feeling, the soul. But it was a great thing that what they had going. And Terry, well, they used to open the show for Jimi Hendrix, right? Big shows.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Jimi Hendrix would come over and say, you know, Terry Kath is probably the best guitar player I have ever heard.
Mm.
You know, and everybody used to say that about him. It's like he just was different, just different, and was so he became the guitar when he played. It's like if you ever saw him live, it's just freaky how he was so about the music, you
He
know.
was just immersed in the whole thing,
And he was
and
he
and
was
then this
a sense of
the
humor,
solo and make me. I think of the make me smile.
make me smile.
Uh,
Yeah,
I think of the solo and make me smile, and he was just phenomenal. You
yeah,
know,
he's
when you talk about accidentally shooting and all that, too many of
yeah,
these guys. I remember the actor. You know, it's funny. It brought to mind the actor, something completely unrelated, but John Eric Hexum shot
yeah,
himself the same way. If you know that name, in the
yeah,
'80s, sometime.
right,
Same exact way, playing around. I think he had a blank, and he
yeah,
thought the blank wasn't going to do him any harm, and he clipped himself. It
yeah.
was just
There's
terrible.
always there's always a wad in there. Yeah, nobody they don't
Yeah.
think about that. Yeah, that
So let's go
yeah.
to 1971 when you went out on your own. Well, I think at first you spent some time trying to, just enjoying yourself, not pushing yourself. What
Well,
happened in
yeah.
71?
Well, when the band finally broke up, you know, it was 71 was our ending. Uh, I just hit out because we were all the whole. I mean, we all went different directions, and we were pretty upset, to say the least.
Yep.
That we like it was like the band fell off the stage, and you know, people to this day say, "What happened, to you guys? You had all these hit records and then nothing." It was. I said, "Well, I wish you guys would have been more interested and found out what happened to us.
Yeah.
We could have
Yeah.
got back
Right.
on top, you know."
Right.
Uh, but yeah, we couldn't get anything. I mean, our history was catching up with us, and things were not going well. So I decided to just, you know, I grew my hair down to my back, and I was beard and hippie. I was like, just get away from it all, and I did. And so then I started writing, uh, and then Carl started writing, the guitar player, and we got together after about a year and played each other our songs, and we started singing with each other, and we thought, hey, we sound pretty good together. Let's make some demos. And we made some demos and got them to a number of labels, and we were turned down by every major label. And we even complained and said, look, it's only been like a year and a half since the Buckinghams. I mean, well, we haven't lost any of our music, you know. So I mean, we were different than the Buckinghams, but it was still good music. And we got turned down by all those people. But our John Polis, our drummer, was now our manager because we were a
Mm.
duo, and we were trying to keep the core together of all of us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And had an idea. He said, "I'm going to send the demo to Lou Adler at Ode Records." And we went, "Oh, come on! He's a gigantic producer. He's a custom label. If the regular run of the mill guys wouldn't have us, you know what?" He said, "Don't worry, I'm going to send it to him. He's a different guy." I said, "Okay." Sure enough, a week later, we get a call back, Lou Adler. "Hey, I really like your demo. I want to fly you out to audition live in LA. Blah, 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 blah." We go out there. We audition live in the studio at Studio B and A&M Records, the most popular recording studio out there at the time. We have Hank Sicalo as the engineer, who was the engineer on Tapestry and all kinds of great jazz albums. Hank goes all the way back to Bobby Darin recordings. And it's like, so we have Lou Adler and Hank recording the two of us with just two acoustic guitars, doing all of our songs in about 40, 50 minutes. And so we leave them. They recorded it. It sounded gigantic. Sounded great.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't believe we had two guitars. They made it sound like it was the whole world. And the next morning he called us and said, "Look at," he says, "been listening to your audition." He says, "It just sounds great." He says, "It almost sounds like we don't have to re-record much of this." He said, "But uh, he said, not only do I want to sign you to the label, but I want to produce the first album."
Mm-hmm.
And so we went.
Wow.
Now it's starting to come back. It's starting to come back now. Now we're back on the road. It's
Right. Right.
happening. Somebody's recognizing what we do, and look who it is. So we go in and we did our first album. That was like 72, 73. That came out good. We charted a little bit with one of the songs on it. And then we were coming back to do our second album because he gave us a 3 album deal, which was crazy. Most people didn't get that. Uh, and Carl got sick three
Mm.
songs into the second recording, and he had to go home for a while. And then about a week later, checking up on him and stuff, and we only had done a couple of tracks, and he said, I said, "How you doing? What's going on?" And he says, "Well," he says, "I'm not coming back. I can't play music anymore." And I said, "Well, that doesn't sound right, you know.
Hmm.
What's wrong? Let's work something out here. Is it whatever we can do?" He says, "I said, well, just go with it and see what's going on with you, and we'll call me back." Well, it never happened, and it turned out that it took about another year and a half to get me involved again. We had to finish the albums, so we got together and finished the two albums, kind of not with all the enthusiasm we had before, but we did it to fill the contract out. And then after that, I just stopped music because I couldn't make a living doing music.
Yeah. What can you do at that point?
And I said, well, I told everybody, I said, I've got to find an adult way of making a living. And they said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to try to act.
That's beautiful that you just went right into it.
Well,
I
it's
know. I
always
know you
been,
took some class. I know you took some
oh
classes,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
made a real quick change.
Oh no, I took classes for a couple of years during the change and everything. I mean, but it started to work after about 6 months. I got into some voice acting work,
Hmm.
and I was already in SAG, so that was a bonus
Yeah, you're a
because
union member.
I had done a jingle in the early '70s that was just a guitar player, me and a song. And the guy said, "Oh, are you in SAG?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm not in SAG. I'm in every other union, you know." He goes, "Well," they said, "this is going to be on film. They're going to lay your voice and stuff over on film." He said, "So you're in SAG now. They'll just take a little bit out of your first check and you'll be in SAG." I said, "Oh, okay." So, flash forward now 7, 8 years, and I'm being asked by people, "Are you in SAG?" "Yes, I am." "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." And I just started working, and
That's
it was
beautiful.
good. It was good for me because it put my juices back into something worthwhile to do, and it was challenging. And I always like to be challenged. I always like to do something that pushes my buttons a bit. That some people go, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, that's what I'm going to
You-
do."
You're
And
not the type to play it safe. You don't play it
yeah,
safe. You
yeah,
kind of make. I
yeah.
like a new challenge.
Yeah. And
And that, yeah.
during that period, it was actually 16 years I was actually acting, and I was doing quite well because during that period of time, which was late '70s into the all the way to the '90s, I
Mm,
was still doing all that work. And during that period of time, I did the Olivia Newton-John tour,
yeah,
and I worked with
that was
Tom Scott.
fantastic.
So I did some really great musical performances, but my main task was doing acting work. And I had a good time. I enjoyed myself. I like the process. I like a whole bunch of people getting together in the same room, working on the same project. It's a nice thing.
Did you enjoy theater or film?
Well,
Which one did you
well,
prefer, or
theater I did
both?
a lot of. I did theater a lot of because it was fun, and it was the most relatable to me because I would before I was an actor, I used to watch plays and I go, how the hell do they do this? How do they go up there for 2 hours and say every
Right,
word correctly to each other? How is that?
right.
They're not reading anything. They're not, and
You learned how to do it, I'm sure.
well, when I started into rehearsals, when I first got cast in and I was lucky, I got cast in plays that were new plays, so I
Mm.
didn't have to listen to somebody else do the work.
Now let me
And
ask you: is this L.A. or New York or somewhere else?
LA, it's LA, yes.
Okay.
And of course, that's funny you should ask that because of my look and everything else at that period of time, I every time I went to go cast in something, they'd say, "You know what I think you should do is you should go to New York.
Go
Is
to New
that
York. If you're going to do
you're
theater,
the
go
way
to New
you're
York.
looking, go to New York." And I said, "No, I just moved from Chicago to here." And then Chicago, a year later after I moved, became the big acting center of the world,
That's true.
and it was really strange because there was no theater there when I was there. It was just
Hmm.
starting to get big there. But that's where I started to study in Chicago. So all that happened. So I enjoyed myself a lot. And then in 1980, we were asked to do a Buckingham's reunion for WLS radio at the Chicago Fest. And so our drummer had passed away. Marty Greb was on the road with Leon Russell. So the rest of us got together and we did this at the big Chicago Fest. We did two shows. And at the end of the second show, the crowds were so big that they added four more shows. And the crowd went nuts because we were a local band they hadn't seen in 11 years. And so then the two guys, Nick and Carl, who weren't doing a whole lot of work, uh, decided that we could do this again, that we could be the Buckinghams again. And I said, well, look, I said, it's been 10 years
Yeah.
that I've been on my own trying to make a living and doing what I'm doing. I said, I can't turn my back on what I've been doing for 10
Yeah.
years and just do that. I said, and so it's like I can't be a Buckingham again because I'm already now me. It's
Yeah.
just a whole different feeling. And I says, and I'd rather just be me, and I could expand on music after that instead of just being the Buckinghams again. And they went off and became the Buckinghams,
Mm.
and they've been the Buckinghams for 38, 40 years or something. I don't know what it is. And I've worked with them a couple of times for induction ceremonies and stuff like that. They're not the Buckinghams, but they're used to being the Buckinghams. And so the one thing I told him, I said, look, I said, I don't know if you understand this. I said, but the drummer and Marty Greb are not going to be in this band. I says, and they were two of the guys that were very important in the band. John's drumming was one of the iconic things on our records. Drummers comment all the time in my
Hmm.
gigs currently about his drumming. Marty Greb was a multi-instrumentalist who made everything work. And Nick and Carl just played, and I'm not saying that's wrong or but that's what they did. Whereas Marty and John had a little bit more invested in it. And I said, I can't, there's no Buckinghams without them. I mean, it would
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
them to
It's not
make.
really, you can't just replace some of these guys.
No, and I said I I just can't hear us,
Yeah.
without those two slots not being filled. And I said, so, but if you want to do it, I said, God bless you, treat it right, make it right. Don't make it a laughing stock or anything. Don't just go out there and do it. And I said, do your best. And that was how we left it. And it got a little crazy after the first 3 years or so because I started singing because the Olivia thing. I started singing again, and they were telling everybody that I retired from music and was pursuing acting.
Hmm.
And that was their reasoning to let everybody know why I wasn't there.
You
And
know, and also if you've never seen that little thing, they got magic going on stage. Dennis and Olivia Newton-John, the late, unfortunately, Olivia Newton-John. There was something going on. I'm not saying behind the scenes. I don't know. I'm not
uh,
talking that. But the chemistry on stage was fantastic. And
yeah.
I watched that several times. I said, boy, he was having the time of his life back.
Oh yeah.
I said,
Oh yeah.
that man was on top of the world back then.
I got to kiss Olivia Newton-John
And you
for
and you
three
looked and
months.
you looked just, a very handsome guy. I'm a heterosexual guy. I could say you're a handsome guy. Handsome guy, and Olivia, the one from Greece and the great
Yeah, yeah.
singer. It all worked so well, and it was a very not an odd pairing, but a pairing that you wouldn't normally see because you saw. I think of Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. You two had better chemistry than Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, I dare
Well,
say.
we had, in all fairness, we had enough time in rehearsals. I mean, I was intimidated and like mad to audition
Mm,
with it. I mean, they asked me to come in and audition so they can check me out, and uh, and I didn't know she was going to be there.
mhm.
And they said, "Okay, let's do the song." And I'm looking around. Okay, all of a sudden the door opens and Olivia walks in, and I'm like, "Oh God!" And she's gorgeous. She's plain
Yeah,
Jane. She's like, the
yeah,
girl off the street.
yeah.
And I have to now sing suddenly the love song to her, and I'm
Mhm.
freaking out. But it freaked out great because the only choice you had was that the song is about these two people being deeply in love
Hmm.
and they're professing to each other what they would do to have this love. So I realized what that would be like. And it wasn't difficult to look at her on stage and fall in love with her. So I just went for it. And one night I just leaned in, put my microphone down, and sang the last notes on her microphone. And she
So
looked.
that was that was impromptu. That wasn't that was just in the
Yeah,
moment.
I threw that out on like the fifth show or something like that.
Hmm.
It was just that kind of energy on stage, And then so we did that, and she knew right away because we were so close in the end
Nose
of
to
the
nose.
song. She looked at me like, "Oh God, he's gonna kiss me." And it was that look that people have when they're about to
Oh
kiss.
yeah.
And we
Oh
just
yeah.
had a very nice stage kiss. It wasn't sloppy. And as the lights came up is when you saw us stop kissing. So everybody
Right.
went nuts.
Uh-huh.
So, when I did that the first time, she at the end of the show, she went, that that stays in. That stays in the show.
And yeah, if she says so, it's going to stay in, I
Oh
guess, right?
yeah. So
Oh yeah.
when we did the taping, she even reminded me then, she says, make sure don't leave the kiss out because that's a
Well,
major.
those are the best moments that are kind of
Yeah.
spontaneous. That's
Oh
when
yeah.
all the all the
Yeah.
good stuff happens.
Well, I
Well,
was
now what? Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was worried that she was going to tell me, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Well,
Kissing.
at that point, you got to take a chance. With what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
feeling in the moment, you take a chance.
Well, I had nothing to do
I've
with that.
gone off script. I've gone off script many times. It usually
Yeah.
works out. Sometimes
Yeah.
they say, "Come on, get back there, Ralph.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do. What you're supposed to do." But now today, now because we gotta wrap it up a little in a few. What's happening today? Are you with that? Are you with that tour? What do they call it? The
Happy together?
Turtles song, "Happy
No,
Together."
happy together? No. No,
No, okay.
I can't get
What's
on
going
that
on with
tour.
you now?
That tour is run by Paradise, the agency who
Oh,
books all the acts, and Paradise has the Buckinghams.
hmm.
So I'm not allowed on any of the tours or cruises that they book the
Oh
Buckinghams.
man, that's the
Yeah.
only reason why you're out because of because of that.
Yeah,
Ah,
some promoters just say, "Oh no, we've been hiring the Buckinghams for years, so we don't need the singer now," and stuff. I say, "Oh, okay."
yeah,
Uh,
but can I tell you, you are the Buckinghams. I mean,
well, that's
they're
nice of
not
you to
really
say.
the Buckinghams. I hate to say it. I'm sure they're great guys. Without you,
Yeah,
they're
no, they
not the
are good guys.
Buckinghams.
No, that's what I tell everybody. I said, "Well, look at," I said, "they are who they are, and I am who I am." I said,
That's
"That's
true.
basically it." I said, and
What?
and
Yeah.
when we play live, because we had to for this induction into the Hall of Fame that we had, uh, not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they wouldn't have us. Uh, but we've played together, and it shocked a lot of people because everything was very copacetic. Everything was
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
I mean, I got rid of all my angst 30 years ago with them when they were just trying to do this and they were being asses about it, suing me and stuff for using the name
Mm-hmm.
Buckingham and stuff. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
look, I can't help it if people remember who I am. It's like if people
Yeah.
call me Dennis Tufano with the Buckinghams, you can't sue me for that.
Of course not.
And so they got over all that. And so we got a neutral spot, and I said, look, go out there and work, if you guys need to do something, do the work. And so hopefully, I get in there and do my work. There's only a couple of places that don't allow me to be hired because of them. But that's what the business is all about. And right now, the business is not really good.
No,
Uh,
it's
but,
a whole other ball game. It's just like night and day the way they do
uh,
things these days. And
and
even
it's
even as an actor
sure.
or a singer, it's so different.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. It's uh, it's just a different format now. It's a different format. It
Hmm.
used to be that you worked on what you did every day the best you could to build a resume and to build credits, and then to raise your price and to go in there and do things better. And then all of a sudden, every actor I knew that was making 5 times scale couldn't
Mm.
get work. They built the
Well,
resume. They
look
did
how you
the,
audition these days, Dennis. You used
I
to have to
know.
go, to the location. You had to be
Right.
seen in
Now
person.
you just do what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I can't get a feel of somebody, not necessarily what we're doing. Yeah, but I mean, if I had to cast somebody in something, I can't really see him on a screen and say
Yeah.
this is the guy for the role.
Yeah.
I gotta get the feel of the room.
Well, it's difficult anyway, because casting, a lot of people don't understand the whole casting process. Casting
No,
people
that's
don't
so
give you
important.
they don't give you anything. It's
No.
like you're acting to what we call the fist.
Yeah.
This is this is the guy you're talking to right here.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what they're like. And like they don't give you anything back. I had a casting director once, very nice lady. As I was reading my my sides, she would mouth the words that I was supposed to be saying the
Uh-huh.
whole
Uh-huh.
time. I was so fascinated, I would forget to say the next line. I would just
Oh
watch,
yeah.
oh, that, and she didn't even react. So, it's a weird
Or you
thing.
would read with somebody that was so flat, they would give you the
Yeah,
line
yeah,
reading so
yeah.
flat.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's the way they do that purposely because they don't want to give anybody an advantage. So they put a some non-actor there reading
Right.
the lines kind of flat to you, and they want everybody to have an equal chance. But they usually have this thing cast before you're even seen anyway.
Yes, right,
So
exactly
who are they
right.
trying to kid?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
No,
Well, listen, Dennis, I can go on forever, but I want to try to fit this on the radio and my
sure.
podcast. So I
Okay.
want to keep it within the hour scope here. But hey, listen, in a couple of months you'll hear from me. I'll bother you again, and
Okay.
maybe we'll talk about the nitty gritty of the actually the business. Now we know your whole story top to bottom. Maybe we'll talk about how music has changed so drastically and what you feel about the new artists. Maybe next time we get together.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, it's a complex little story. It gets more complex every day, I think. So
But you really
it's
got me with that. What you really got me with all those. I didn't realize about that story in the hotel and everything.
the
I
drug
didn't. I
bust.
never
Yeah,
heard that one.
yeah.
That was a good one. But
That was Spirit
not good
Lake.
at the time. But when you
Yeah,
look back at it,
yeah. Spirit Lake, Iowa. That's where that was. Spirit Lake.
Iowa of all
I
places,
remember it
Iowa to
well.
get caught.
I remember it well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm glad you're okay and everything's fine.
Oh yeah, and you too. And I'll see you
Yeah,
soon. And thanks for a great interview. I appreciate it.
you got it, man. Thank you very
Take
much.
it easy. Bye.
Take it easy.